Okay, so good morning all, and today we are planning to cover the following topics which are pending from Selenium side. So one would be Robo class. We would also see, how to use different selectors. Although we have knowingly or unknowingly used quite a few of them, during the past 3 to 4 days that we have started Selenium. But today I thought I would explicitly, discuss about different selectors that are there, which help us in identifying web elements on a web page. Then we will also see how do we read value from an Excel sheet. This is a handy because in real time project we generally don't use any hard coded value in our code, right? So for example, if we want to automate the login application, then the username password will not be there as hard coded in the script. It would be stored in some XLS file or XLSX file or CSV file, JSON or whatever. So from there, we would fetch the data and we would, kind of parameterize our script, and we will use those data in our automation code. So we will see that how to do it through the Excel, and we will, if time permits, we will start with Maven and TestNG today. Okay, so that's the plan for today. And yeah, so let us start with Robo class. So yesterday I just gave a brief idea why do we need Robo class, right? So Robo class is actually used to simulate the keyboard as well as the mouse click, in our application. So like for example, if you have to interact with any web page, right? So you always have an option of inspecting that element, finding its attribute, and based on that attribute you uniquely identify that object, and then you use the different Selenium methods that are there, like click, send key, or whatever, right? But in case of any pop-up window that would be of a window based application or a Windows pop-up, just to keep it simple. So how do you inspect those objects? You cannot right click a window object and inspect and get the HTML attributes, right? Because that is a window object. So in order to deal with such kind of scenario, we have an option called as Robo class. Okay, and this Robo class would help us to automate window based uh, pop-ups or windows using our key press and or mouse press. Okay, so we will see that now. So let's start with one second. Yeah, I'll start with a fresh class. Okay, let me begin with creating a new class for today. I'll name it day5. Yeah, let's keep it day5 robo class. Okay, I will use public static void main. Click on finish. Okay, so to save time, I will copy paste the initial setup of initializing the web driver. Okay, and then
Sir, can you zoom out programming screen?
oh yes, 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 yes. Sorry, yes.
Yes.
Okay, zoom in. You mean, right?
Zoom out. Zoom out.
Zoom out.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so is this okay?
No, sir. Press two, three times.
So you want it smaller, is it?
Yes, yes. Smaller, very smaller. Sorry. Zoom in.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Even I was wondering, why do you want to reduce the size? Okay. So zoom in one more time and one more time. Okay, is this okay, Jamin?
Yes, yes, sir. Easy.
Okay, all right, yeah, sure. So one second. Yeah, yeah. So now we have set up our web driver, and let's open up again one demo application which we have been using all this while. We will continue with that. Uh, I think it is. One second. Let me access. Okay. Elements. We have this page where you have this upload and download button. Okay, so this one. So I want to launch this URL. Okay, post that I want to click on this download button. So I will tell you first what I'm going to do manually. Okay, so click on download button, and now if you see, we have this download kind of a window pop-up that comes up. So instead of inspecting this pop-up, what I would do is I would press the mouse, or sorry, the key press button of tab, which will take me to whatever download icon that I want to see. I click on this enter button, and I will come to this particular page. Okay, so it's just a simple kind of a demo on to show you how this tab and enter key would be pressed using the robo class. Okay, although it may not make really sense as such, but just to show you how this works, I'm trying to give this example. Okay, so I have to launch this website as I said. Then based on what I click, you know I would navigate to that particular download page, sorry, explorer window, and access that downloaded image. Okay, so first thing is you have to inspect this download button, right? So I would use this attribute ID, and I will use a CSS selector. So we will see all those selectors, how to use the syntax after some time, but just for the time being, I'm using this driver dot find element by dot CSS selector in double quotes, the CSS selector value, and then click. Okay, and what I would say is okay, I'll also put a simple basic wait time here of 3000 milliseconds. Okay, so let's run this first and see how the code behaves, and later on we will see how to use robo class ahead. Okay, so I will execute this. Okay, so it has clicked on the download button, and you see an image has been downloaded, and over here what do you call this, status bar or whatever, I can see that image has been downloaded. So now if I have to access this, okay, so what I would do is I would go by my key press, I mean the keyboard press of tab key. Okay, so just to show you, I will count how many times I have to press tab key so that I would be able to access this particular uh, you know uh, this particular object over here. Okay, so I press tab 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, at tab number 5 I have come to this particular object, and I will press tab once more because I actually want to open that window explorer with the download path. Okay, so I think I pressed tab 5 times if I'm not wrong. Okay, and then I would press enter key, right, so that this pop-up window comes up. Then I would press up arrow key so that it goes to show in folder, and then I would press enter key again, so that I have come to this particular downloaded folder, Windows Explorer path. Okay, so 5 tabs, then an enter, then an up arrow key, and then again an enter, so that this particular download folder, you know, would open up. Fine. So now let us see how I can do that using Robo class. So for Robo class, I have to create an object of Robo class, obviously. So Robo, I would say RB equal to new Robo. Okay. Control Shift O. What does it say? Add throws declaration. Okay, fine. Then I would say RB, right? And I would say, yeah. So if you press the dot over here, you will get a list of all the methods that you can perform on this Robo class. So you see here you have key press, you have key release, then you have mouse move, mouse press, mouse release, etc. Right? So I would use this key press, and over here I have to mention that I want to press the tab key. Okay, so how do I do that? We have this key event option, and if you again press a dot, you will get an option to select what key you want to press. Okay, so here if you see, you have numeric 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 keys, then 8, accept, add, and whatever. You have B, you know you have backspace, right? You have caps lock. You have so many options. So whatever keyboards that are there on your laptop or your PC, you will have all those options mentioned over here. So now, since I want to press tab, I would say vk underscore t ab, right? So what this will do is it will simulate the tab key press on your machine. Okay, and I have to do it 5 times, right? So we counted that: 3, 4, 5. Then we had to press the enter key, if you remember. So I would do dot vk, and you see there is this enter key, right? Then you also have to press the up arrow key, right? So if you see here, there is this vk underscore up, and then finally it was also vk enter. Okay, so now this would happen very fast. Okay, you may not even realize that all these things were done. So what I would do is, again, I would add a wait time. You can use that explicit wait or whatever, but just to save time, I would rather use thread.sleep. Okay, so let me add 1 second wait time after each of this robo class event. Okay, and let me print out sys robo class execution complete. Okay, so at the end, what should happen? You should basically land up on this particular downloads folder, path, and you should see that image being downloaded over here. Okay, so for now, I will close this folder. Okay, and let me execute this script. I'll close unnecessary browsers that are open, and we are good. Okay, so I'll execute this. So it has launched this URL. It has clicked on this download button. Now it is pressing the tab. Oh, oh, okay. I think I made some mistake in the count.
No, no, 6 step.
Oh, is it 6 tab? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, okay. Let's try it one more time, and let me delete that download file as well. Okay, so let's run it. No, no, no. There is something wrong in the count. Let me do it again. So I download this. Okay. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 7 tabs are there. Then an enter, then an up arrow key, and then an enter. Okay. So 7 tabs are there. My bad. Uh, one,
Rahul.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, just give me a minute and then I'll take your question. Yes, somebody had a question. Please tell me.
Yes, Rahul. We have pressed the key, right? So we need to release the key also, right?
Uh, I don't think so. Let's see. Let's see with this if it works, because I
Okay.
think it should. Let's see. I mean, this should ideally work because I tried it before this session. Let's
Okay.
run this and see. Okay. So now let's see if it opens the folder. Perfect. Yeah. Right, so it actually simulated whatever we wanted it to simulate, right? And then you can also, after coming to this particular page, you can also add an enter key simulation so that this image also would come up. Okay, so that you can add accordingly. So I think Madhuri or somebody asked a question. We are using just key press, right? Why not key release?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I rb.key release. Okay, so if I press a tab once and then I release it and then I press again. Okay, so let's see if I add this, how this works, because I haven't really tried. Mm, Key press, key release. Okay, let me key press, key release, press key release, enter, up, key release. Let's see if this works. Okay, so ideally what I think, I mean, again, this is my assumption, probably key release would be for the keys that we press as a combination, like control alt delete or alt F4. During that scenario we may require key release. That is what I'm assuming. For a single key press maybe you may not require key release, but still, since you asked this question, we will give it a try. Okay, so let's come back to the same code. What we have basically done is, after every key press, we are also releasing the same key. So 7 key press for tab, and the subsequent 7 key release also, followed by enter, up, and enter key. Okay, so with this we will see the, the code works. Okay. Okay. Something different happened here. Uh, at least the tab worked fine. Uh, After this up arrow key, something went wrong.
No, this time it's taking 7.
Sorry? No, let's count.
Last.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now it is taking 6, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I didn't expect Robo class to take this long, but anyways, it's a good question, so we will see. Okay, anyways, the count is, going a little haywire. But Madhuri, your question is valid. Key release also works fine. So if you add key release, it still works as it is. Okay, there might be some change in the count of the tab, but either you go with a single key press and continue, it works fine. And even if you add a key release, it will still work as you saw. It was going navigating to that particular object. Okay, but what I assume is key release would be required if you are pressing some combination of keys like control alt delete or alt F4 or control A control C, something like that, right? But for a normal single key press, I think you may not even require to add this line of code of key release. Okay, but you can add it also, as you can see, it was working fine. Okay, so this was about key press. Similarly, for mouse event, you have this option of mouse right clicking, or you can also move the mouse to a particular position. So mouse move, where you have to mention the x and y coordinate. Mouse press would press the left key or the right key, something like that. Let me show you one mouse press. Okay, so for mouse press, you have this input event. Okay, just like for key, it was key event, right? For mouse press, it is input event dot button one down mask. Okay, so that would be the left mouse key. Button 2 would be, I believe, the center mouse, if you have that wheel kind of a thing, so that can be pressed. And also button 3 would be the right one. So again, you can do a lot of things with the mouse as well. This is for mouse press. Even for mouse move, if you give some specific coordinates, the x and y coordinate, like 120, 200. Okay, so it will move that mouse cursor to that particular location. Okay, so any question, guys, so far? This was pretty simple. There's nothing much to explain
Rahul,
here. Yeah.
uh, we have already robot class. So why they introduced the same thing in Selenium for action class?
Selenium, which one?
We have a robot class.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So why they introduce same feature in action class?
So for action class, Sanjay, we do few more other stuff also, right? Like drag and drop and things like that. This
No, no,
particular,
no,
yeah,
no, no, no. This keyboard action.
yeah. So basically, when you interact with a window-based pop-up, you would need a robo class. Like for action class, it is for web-based simulation where you have to do a key press or anything of that sort, right? So if you are interacting with a particular web element and if you have to press some keyboard actions to, I mean the keys to it, so then you use action class for it. But for window based pop-up, like for example, if you have a save as dialog box that comes up, right? Like if you, for example, if there is an attachment and you have to save it to a particular location, you get that windows dialog box, right? So over there, if you want to interact with it, your action class will not work. You have to use robo class in that case, and it will simulate those key press and the tab key and things like that. So robo class is required for window based application pop-ups basically.
Yeah, Robo class, yeah, either Auto IT or Sikuli also.
Yeah, auto IT also would work fine, but the only challenge there is that if you integrate it with a CI/CD tool, like Jenkins or whatever,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
any script that has auto IT related code, then it is not compatible with CI/CD. So in that case, instead of auto IT, robo class is preferable, like that.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Rahul.
Yes. Madhuri, do you have any other question? I hope the previous question I tried to answer, but
I only asked Rahul.
who was it? Oh,
Jansi.
Jansi, Jansi. Okay, okay. Sorry, sorry. Yeah, Jansi. So, any other question, Jansi?
No, no, Rahul. Fine.
Okay, great. So, with that, we will start with selectors. Okay, so let me save this. Let's open up a new class. Or maybe you don't really need uh, Java code to be written. I would just explain on the DOM window itself. Okay, so yeah, let me start with, again, I found this example on the internet and it was pretty useful to show all the possible XPath related um, syntaxes over here. So we will take this particular sample HTML file which has certain text, you know uh, and it falls in certain hierarchy in the HTML DOM. If you see this, inspect, so each of these text falls inside one another, and it will help us to understand different XPath that can be written using this. Okay, and before that, I have to mention what is selectors. Okay, so selectors are nothing but different ways by which you can identify a particular web element on your application. Okay, so let's take this example to first show you uh, some. Let me open up a form. Okay, on this particular page, there are different web elements, right? You have edit box, you have radio button, uh, you have calendar object, check boxes, so on and so forth, right? So as I mentioned in the beginning, Selenium doesn't identify these objects as a separate, as an edit box or a radio button or a checkbox. For Selenium, all of them are web elements. Okay. So now we have to identify these web elements separately so that we can use, specific methods to interact with them. So now how do I identify this object? I have to first inspect it by right clicking on it. Okay. When you right click on it and when you inspect, it will take you to the HTML DOM, the source code of this particular web page, and the specific uh, field line gets highlighted over here. And here, as you can see, the HTML tag that is there associated for this object is input tag. Okay, so input is the HTML tag, and there are different attributes and the value, as a key value pair that you can see for each of these objects. Like autocomplete is an attribute, the value is off. Placeholder is an attribute, first name is its value. Uh, Type is an attribute, text is a value, ID is an attribute, first name is the value, so on and so forth. Okay. So now whatever value you think would help Selenium identify this object uniquely, you have to make use of those attributes, and you have to pass them as a selector in your code. Okay. So for example, if I think that this ID is an attribute that can identify this object uniquely, right? So if I copy this and if I do control F, as I said earlier, in our previous sessions, that you should always see one of one over here. That means this particular value that you have selected helps Selenium identify this object uniquely in that particular HTML document. Okay. So now when I go back to my code, Selenium code, and if I say driver dot find element, okay, so this is the method to identify the object, and then based on what, by dot, and you see over here you have class name, you have CSS selector, you have ID, you have link text, you have name, you have partial link text, you have tag name, and you have XPath. So all these are nothing but selectors for Selenium to identify the object. So now what we have identified the attribute as unique, it was ID, right? ID and its value. So I can use this selector by dot ID, okay, and you have to mention the value of the ID in double quotes, and you can use the rest of the methods like dot send keys, and pass whatever value you want to pass. Okay, so this is one selector which is called as ID. Okay, similarly, there might be some attribute objects that has some attributes like name. Okay, let me see if there is any attribute by that name. uh, no, I don't think so. But similar to what ID that we have seen here, right? If there is any HTML element that has an attribute by the type as name, and if it has a value associated with it, then and if that particular value is unique, then again you can use driver.find element by dot name. Over here you see, you give name and then the whatever value that is, like for example username. Okay, and then whatever value that you want, or whatever method you want to use, click or whatever. Okay, similarly there is something called as driver.find element by dot link text. Okay, link text and partial link text, as the name suggests, it will be useful to identify a link uniquely. Okay, so let me see if there is any link over here. uh, I don't see a link. Okay, so here we have a page. Okay, so if I have to identify this link, what I can do is, mm, yeah, so a link would always start with an HTML tag as A. Okay, and this is the text of that particular link. All right, so if you think this particular text is unique, then you can use this attribute, or use this selector by dot link text, and you can mention the link value, the text value of it, so that you can ask Selenium to perform certain operation on that particular link. If you think that, instead of giving the entire lengthy link, if I can use certain portion of that text of that link, right? So I can make use of something called as driver dot find element by dot partial link text. Okay, so instead of giving the entire link value, if that link text is pretty lengthy, and if you think that even certain substring of that text can help Selenium uniquely identify that link, you can use by dot partial link text as well. Okay, these are pretty straightforward things, so I don't think you have any question, but if you have, you can just interrupt and let me know. Okay. Then there is another selector driver dot find element by dot tag name. Okay, so now for example, let's say in this entire page there is only one link. Okay, so now there are multiple links, but if you have any application which has only one link and there is only one object which is in a tag, right? So you can simply use by tag name to identify that object uniquely. Obviously, in this case, since there are multiple objects with a tag associated with it, so it will not work in this case. But just for explaining what this tag name will do, it will basically identify uh, an element which has a specific tag which you have mentioned over here, and if it is only one element with that particular tag, it would be able to identify it uniquely. Okay, then one more selector is called as by dot class name. Okay, so now let's say let's go back to the previous page, and I think we have one class. Yeah, so there is this class attribute and this is the value, right? So if you think this particular value of this class attribute is unique, then you can mention it over here by dot class name, mention the value, and interact it with this whatever methods you want to use, dot send keys, dot click, etc. Okay, so what uh, it is preferred to identify this object, generally I don't remember the exact sequence, but they say that for each of these selectors, Selenium has certain performance related. I mean, like basically, how quickly Selenium would able to identify that object. It also depends on the selectors that you use. So I believe it is something like class name is on the top. So by class, it identifies very fast. Then it is, I believe, ID, name, and then I think XPath. Oh, sorry. Then I think it is CSS, and then finally it is XPath. Okay, so it is like that hierarchy. I'm not very sure on the exact sequence, but it is something like that. You can Google it out. So point is, if you have any object which has a unique class name, right? Go ahead with that. Okay, if class name is not unique, then probably go with an ID attribute. If ID is also not unique, then go with name. Okay, and then obviously if there is a link, you can go with this. Tag is something that is very rarely used because there is very rare chance that only one object is there of that particular tag. Okay, and if none of this works to uniquely identify that object, then you have CSS, and then finally you use XPath. Okay, so that is the sequence, more or less. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward, right? So we will go into detail how to identify the object using CSS and XPath in some time. But before I move to that, any questions on these selectors?
No.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So then let's move.
Can you re-explain this partial link text, Rahul?
Yeah, partial link text, it is, as the name suggests, right? It uses a partial value of the link text. So you understood what is link text, right? So if there is any link which has a text as home, let's say, okay, and if that value is unique for any link uh, in that particular page, you can use link text for it. Okay, and let's say there is some link which has a very lengthy name, something like click me here and open, something like that. Okay, I'm just giving a generic stuff. So if this is the text of a particular link, and you think that instead of giving this entire text, uh, if you think, if you just mention me here, okay, if you think this value itself is unique, okay, so rather than giving that entire length of the string, length of that text value of that link, you can use this substring of it using this selector called as partialLinkText. Okay, so linkText would expect this value to match exactly the way what you have mentioned over here, and this would be, if any link has this as a substring inside it, and if it is able to identify that link uniquely, it will perform the click operation on it. Okay, so it is like a substring. I think it was Sanjay, right, who asked the question. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Sanjay, it is like substring that we have seen during our Java session, right? So if you can extract that substring and it still identifies that link uniquely, you can use this partialLinkText. Okay,
Okay.
all right. So let's move ahead with uh,
Actually, till now I have not used link text and partial link text. So
yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
when I don't have.
Yeah, link text and partial link text, even I haven't really used very frequently. I generally go with class ID name if it is there. But then if
Yeah.
these two attributes are not there, then I go with XPath or CSS like that. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, fine. So let's go with XPath, right? So as I said, this was a sample HTML code that I found over the internet, and this would help us to go through different, XPath syntaxes. Okay, so there are various ways, there are various syntaxes in XPath which you can use. Okay, one is like we had discussed some time back. One is called as absolute. Let me write it on the notepad. Uh, so XPath one is called as the absolute XPath, right? So it starts with the forward single forward slash, uh, and it goes as the parent node onwards till whichever element you want to identify in that HTML document. And then other is called as the relative XPath, where you start with a two forward slash and then you give whatever tag name and then the attribute value or whatever. So in that entire HTML document, wherever it finds this particular matching tag, it will identify that object accordingly. Meaning, let me show you. So let's say this is the object, or maybe this one. Okay, this yeah, this one. So if I go and say copy full XPath, okay, so you see here, it starts with the HTML, then the body, then there is a div tag, then inside that there is the first div tag which you have to go. Inside that first tag, there is the second div tag which you have to go, and then inside that there is this h4 tag which has this value called as mammal. Okay, so this is called as the absolute XPath. Okay, I always get confused with what is absolute and relative, but I think this time I have mentioned correctly. So this is an absolute XPath, and what is a relative XPath is, if I say something like this, two forward slash uh, h4, okay, and I would say uh, text equal mammal. Yeah. So you see here, I have not given the parent node, then drill down further, then drill down again. So I have given I have followed certain syntax which would help Selenium identify that object using this relative XPath. Okay, so now I will explain each and every way of identifying or using the XPath. Okay, so the syntax first of all goes something like this. Okay, the syntax is for a relative XPath. I mean, okay, so two forward slashes. Then you have to mention the tag name. Okay, so just like in this case, what I've done is h4 is the tag name which I have used, correct? And then open the square bracket, okay, and mention the attribute using the at the rate symbol attribute, okay, equal to, in single quotes, the value of that attribute, okay, and end it with a square bracket. Okay, so this is the syntax for an XPath. I don't know how to zoom this, but is it visible by any chance?
Yes, yes. Or you can press the control key and
Okay, I think now it is good.
mouse wheel.
Now,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Yeah, so tag two forward slashes, tag name, in square bracket, at the rate, the attribute which you want to search, equal to, and the value of that attribute in single quotes, and end the square bracket. So this is the a generic syntax for an XPath. Okay. Then let's say if you want to search using the text. Okay. So this is for using attribute. You can note this down because there are plenty of them. Okay, so if you want to search a particular element by the text it has, so again the symbol goes, I mean the syntax goes something like this: tag name, okay, square bracket, text, open and close round parenthesis, equal to, right, the the text value, single quotes, and end it with a square bracket. So this is exactly what we have done uh, over here, right? So HTML tag, square bracket, let me copy it here. Okay. So HTML tag was h4, square bracket, text, open and close round bracket, equal to, single quotes, the value which was there in the text, and ended with a square bracket. Okay. So similarly, yeah, somebody has a question or what? I think I'm hearing some.
Actually, Rahul, some I find out some more another way also we can find out text. So
Okay.
here we write text and open bracket and close bracket na.
Huh.
So there we can write simply dot remaining same. So using this way also you can find out text.
Text dot, I think, is it CSS, using CSS or
No,
by using XPath?
no, no, XPath.
Okay, so you're saying
You,
uh,
you can
dot
try.
like this?
No, not like this. Removing text, text and start bracket and close bracket. Yeah,
Okay, and how about equal to?
yeah. Equals to it's here. Trace dot
Okay,
equal to,
okay,
yeah, remaining same.
okay. So let's see if this works.
Yeah.
But I believe this is for regular expression. If you have multiple things, Sanjay.
Yeah, it works, but this is something that I don't know. But thank you. I think this is one. Yeah, but I think Rajesh is saying that it might be for regular expression. So yeah, so there is one way like this, and the other way what uh, Sanjay suggested is you can go something like this. Okay, like this. Fine. So this was for text. Yeah. Yeah, Sanjay, you wanted to say something?
Nothing from my side.
Okay, okay, sure. So then let's say instead of the entire text, if you want to search with a specific substring inside that text, okay. So instead of giving this text, what you would mention is h4, which is a tag, right? And then you would say contains text, okay. And then you would say comma, and let's say mmal. Okay, I think this should work. Let me try. Yeah, so it works, right? So what I've done is, instead of giving that entire text, I know this mmal, is the only text that is there on this particular screen. So instead of giving that mmal, the entire string, I can also use contains text and then the value or the substring that I want to give over here. Okay, so this is one way. The other way using contains is also for an attribute. So instead of text, if there is any attribute which has the value which you want to use as a contains, you can use something like this. Okay, you would say at the rate attribute, okay, whatever attribute you want to search, right, comma, and value, or you can say sub value of the attribute. Okay, you getting my point, right? So contains, so this is a attribute where you're giving the entire value of that attribute, whereas this is the attribute with a sub value of that attribute. So this is the way for using contains for a sub value of an attribute. Similarly, this is the entire text if you want to match, whereas this one, if you want to validate a certain sub value of that text using this contains method, you can use it like this. Okay, if you want, I will share this XPath related stuff on Telegram channel if you want, because I know there are plenty of them and you may not be able to remember everything, but we will still see whatever is possible. Then there is something called as starts with. Okay, starts with. So how does this go is something like this. So for example, again, okay, over here uh, we have mentioned contains this mammal, right? So what I would do is I would say h4. Okay, tag name is the h4 in square bracket, right? I would say starts with. Don't worry if you're not able to see this, but I will copy paste it in Notepad later. Okay, starts with. Then what you can say, uh, let's say text. Okay, and I would say mam. Okay, and yeah. So what I've done is I've used starts with. So if there is any text which has a unique starting character, okay, then you can use this starts with text and give the starting unique value to it. Similarly, starts with an attribute also work the same way. Okay, so you can give at the rate attribute instead of the text and mention the attribute value. Okay, the starting attribute value. Starting attribute value. Fine. So just like with starts with, obviously you would also have ends with. I'm just guessing. Okay, just let me try. ends with no, ends with, I don't know, it's not there. I just guessed. Okay, so
It's there. Ends with also there.
ends with is also there, is it?
Yes, yes, Rahul.
Mm,
Yeah, we have end with, but we can use end with when we have a similar kind of tag names, and in that we need to find out the exact particular things.
yeah, but then I have this HTML tag h4 which has this value mammal. So I'm using ends with text and I'm giving mal as the ending value. So it should have,
Yeah, you can. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
but then it is not working. Uh, okay, let me try again. H4 ends with, okay, and then I would say text and mal. Uh, Not sure why it is not working. I am trying to use this. So ends with, just like what it is starts with, I did ends with text and then the value. I mean, by syntax it looks fine, but it is not working for some reason. Uh, Probably let me try something with, no. Okay, I'll get back to you this on why this ends with is not working. Anyways, let's move on to the next way, which is ancestor. Okay, so ancestor is basically, as the name suggests, right? It will find you the ancestor for the tag that you have been searching. Like for example, if I want to know what is the ancestor element for this particular web element called as mammal. Okay, so now how would I do it? First of all, I have to identify this object, this element first, right? So I would say uh, this one, class mammal, for example. Okay, so I would say at the div at the rate class equal to mammal. Okay, so this is identifying this particular object uniquely, right? Then what I would add is ancestor, right? Two colon over there, and then what I want to identify the ancestor is div. Okay, and then you can, just by mentioning div it was able to identify what is its ancestor, div class animal. But let's say I add something like at the rate uh, class equal to animal. Okay, and if I add maybe, let me see if this works, vertebrate. Yeah, okay. So what, how this works is that if you see here, right, mammal is over here, this particular element. Okay, and this falls under which element? It falls under this div class vertebrate. So how do I know that it falls under this? Is because if I collapse this div class vertebrate, this mammal falls inside it, right? So that is one way I can understand that mammal falls under this particular element, and eventually this vertebrate also falls under something called as div class animal. So it is like this is the child, this is the parent, and this is the, you know, kind of a grandparent, you can say. Okay, so these are my ancestors, right? My father, grandfather, you know, great grandfather, like that. So if I want to identify uh, my ancestor or ancestral element, I can use this particular syntax. Okay, so as I showed you over here, div, first you identify the element which you want to search the ancestor for, add forward slash ancestor and two colons, and then give the tag or the element of the ancestor which you want to search. Okay, this is one way. Then, I mean, there are plenty. There is ancestor or self. There is, child also. So maybe I'll show you what is one child. Okay. So let's say the same example, mammal. Okay. / child. Okay. Two colons. And then which type of child tag you want to search. Let's say div. Okay. So now if I copy and paste it over here, so you see over here, mammal is this class mammal, right? Inside this, how many child elements are there? I mean, what type of child elements are there? One is h4 tag, and there are two div tags also. Okay, so since I mentioned div, it has given me one of two, right? So there are two div child elements for this particular mammal element. If I mention instead of div as, let's say, h4, it will give me one of one. Why? Because there is only one child element inside this class mammal which has a tag as h4. Okay, so you can give div or h4 or whatever. Whatever. Okay, next is, let's say, descendant. Okay, again, just go by the definition of that particular word, descendant. What basically that means is, it is like my son or my daughter or my son's son, my grandson or great grandson, like that. Okay, so descendant would find me all those kind of objects. Okay, so here, let's say, let's start with this animal, right? So this is the topmost, I believe, class, right? So I would say animal, and instead of child, what I'll do is I would say descendant. Okay, and what type of descendant I want to search? I want to search all div related descendants. So now if you see inside animal, how many divs and sub divs are there? So now if you see here, the child for animal, the child div is only two, right? Vertebrate and whatever invertebrate. But inside this vertebrate also there are multiple divs, isn't it? So it will find me my child element, my great, uh, you know, whatever, grandson, great grandson, like that. Okay, so no matter how many divs are there inside this, so if you use descendant, it will find all of them and it will give you your, now it is showing as 1 of 11, right? So you can use this to find all the descendants for this particular element which has tag as div. Okay, so instead of div, if I give something like, let's say, h3. Okay, so it has shown me only one of two. Why? Because there are just two descendant which has this tags as h3, which falls under animal class. Okay, so this was about descendant. Then we have something called as following. Okay, so following. So I would say for following, we will take example of mammal probably. You can use anything, but just for your understanding. Following, I would say div. Okay, let's see what we get in this case. Okay, so now you see here, I have this class mammal, right? Class mammal. And what is the immediate following tag which matches div? It is this class other, correct? That is highlighted. How do I zoom in this? But I hope you are able to see at least something over here, right? I'm not able to zoom this HTML source, so please bear with me. But what I've done here is, I have first identified this class mammal and I have mentioned following. What is the next div uh, element that follows this div class mammal? Okay, so it says class other. Okay, and it is saying 1 of 4. Okay, so there are multiple other also that falls after this, right? And if I say, if I want a specific one, like for example, if I say 2. Okay, so what it will identify? It will identify the second following div object after this mammal. Okay, so first it was other, which was showing as 1 of 4, right? So if I remove this index, it is showing me 1 of 4. But if I want some specific index, so if I mention here as 2, it has given me invertebrate and it has showed me 1 of 1. Okay, so this is also another way of identifying the object, the following object, using index. Okay, then you also have something called as preceding. So just like, I mean, the opposite of following is preceding, right? So instead of following, what I would do is I would say mammal and I would say preceding. Okay, so what is the div objects which precedes this mammal? Okay, so it is showing as whatever fish. Okay, that precedes this, right? So again, instead of div, if I give something like h4, it will show you this. If I say h3, what precedes mammal is h3 here as vertebrate. Okay, so preceding also works exactly the same way, but the flow is on the top instead of downwards. So then next is also something called as following sibling. Okay, so following would be not just sibling, it would be like even the child or the grandchild kind of a element, it would identify that. But if it is following sibling, it will check for tags which has the same parent tag. Okay, so that is what we call as sibling, isn't it? So instead of following, what I would write here is following hyphen sibling. Okay, so if I give this, so what is the following sibling of mammal class? It is this other, right? Because there is no other sibling after mammal, right? After mammal, so if you see here, the parent here is vertebrate. I started with mammal. The following sibling of mammal here is other. Okay, so instead of mammal, if I say start with fish, okay, so now you see it is showing two following siblings, because first was fish, then there were two more other div elements which were a sibling to fish. So that is why it showed 1 of 2. So instead of fish, I say mammal, so then it will show me only one following sibling after mammal. Okay, so these are like 3 kids. The second one, we started with the second one, mammal. So who is the other after this mammal? It is other, right? So it showed me 1 of 1. Okay, so this is following sibling, and then obviously you have preceding sibling also, right? Just like what you had preceding, you would have preceding sibling as well. Okay, so this is very theoretical, I know, but trust me, you don't use all of these XPaths, that frequently. Okay, but just so that you understand what different XPath possibilities are there, I'm trying to show this. Okay, so now I just copy pasted this preceding sibling one for mammal. So mammal is this one, right? So who is the elder, the first elder sibling to mammal? It is this fish. Okay, so if I start with, let's say, class other, so it will show me 1 of 2. So other has two preceding siblings, one is mammal and one is fish. Okay, so this was about preceding sibling. Then if I want to know the parent tag of a particular object, okay, so parent would be, I'm sure you must have guessed it. It is just, you have to add parent keyword to this, right? And it will show you the parent. Oh, I'm sorry, so you also have to mention the tag. Yeah, so parent and then 2 colon and the HTML tag of the parent. So it is div. Okay, so started with mammal, the parent which matches the tag div here is vertebrate, like that. Okay, so these are the different XML attributes XML selectors which you can use for identifying various objects using XPath. Okay, but trust me, as I said, you may, most frequently use this attribute one, this text one. Okay, this contains one probably, and maybe starts with or something like that. Very rarely you would use ancestor, child, descendant, but yes, of course, if there are certain application which doesn't have any unique attribute for the object which you want to search, then you can use this child, descendant, following. So you have to first identify one unique object, and then traverse through the main object which you want to search but which doesn't have a unique attribute. Then you can first identify what is unique, and then use this following, descendant, blah blah blah, whatever options that you have to find the object which you want to work with. And unfortunately that particular object doesn't have any unique value, right? So this is the workaround. So all these are workarounds to identify an object which you want to interact but doesn't have any unique attribute to it. So you use, these other different options: child, ancestor, descendant, following with a particular index, things like that. Okay. Any questions so far, guys? I mean, at least you understood why you are using these different XPath options, right?
Yes, Robo.
Okay, fine. So we will now quickly check the CSS, how to use the CSS selector, okay? And then we will end with Excel reading. Unfortunately, again, I will not be able to start with Maven and TestNG, but that's okay. As long as we are learning something new, that's fine. Uh, Let me open again that application, the demo application. Okay, so http, yeah, demoqa.com, and automation practice form. Okay, all right. So here is this text area, right? Current address, right? So we will see the different ways to identify this object using CSS selector. Okay, so I'll right click and I'll inspect first. So this is the value, the HTML value for this text area object. Okay, so you have the HTML tag text area, you have the attribute placeholder, then the value, rows value, column value, ID value, so on and so forth, right? So now if you want to use CSS instead of XPath, if you want to use CSS, so what is the syntax for CSS? Let me open this for CSS. So the CSS goes something like this: node, okay, or the HTML tag, whatever you want to mention. Okay, HTML tag in square bracket, mention attribute name, okay, equal to the value. All right, so in XPath, what it was, the syntax, forward slash to, then the HTML tag, and then at the rate symbol, then the attribute and the value, right? So for CSS, it is simple. Just mention the HTML tag, square bracket, attribute without that at the rate symbol, equal to, and in single quote, the value. Okay, so now in this case, let's try something, maybe this placeholder. Okay, so I would say uh, text area, okay, square bracket, placeholder, equal to, single quote, the value. You see, it is able to identify the object, right? So this is how you can use CSS. And how would you use it for that driver dot find element? It would be something like this: driver dot find element by dot CSS selector, right? What is it? Driver dot find element by dot yeah, CSS selector, and then you mention this CSS selector which you have created, correct? Uh, like this, okay, and then whatever send keys or like that. Okay, so this is how you would actually use CSS using driver.find element. Okay, then if you want to use CSS to identify the object uh, with the attribute as ID, okay, so you have something called as hash symbol, or the whatever we call it as pound symbol, right? So pound, and then just give the ID value to it. It will still identify that object using the CSS selector directly. Okay, so no need to write text area attribute ID and then the value whatever that value is. Okay, so you can simply use hash and the ID value. Okay, like this. So for example, class, if class is unique, then you can simply use class value, and then you would just put a period, or the full stop or a dot ahead of it. Obviously now it is not unique, but just to give you an example, just like how we use hash and the value of the ID directly, you can use dot and class value directly. Okay, now if you want to use ID and certain attribute as a combination, maybe ID value in itself is not unique, but if you use it with some other attribute, it gives you a unique value. Okay, so in that case, how would you do? Or yeah, so we will see that now. So you would say text area. Let me again, what was the text area, right? So yeah, so I would say text area, start with a tag. Okay, then what was the ID? It was hash uh, current address, although it is uniquely identifying it. But just to give you an example, if ID was not unique, then you could use this ID along with an attribute. So how do you write an attribute? That syntax: in square bracket mention the attribute which you want to use, and then equal to the value of that attribute. Okay, so this is a combination of ID and some other attribute. Okay, so text area, or just to give in syntax format, it would be HTML tag. Okay, then hash and the ID value, right? Because you have seen, right, ID value, how you can use the CSS selector using this hash symbol. And then you also know the attribute, how do you pass it, right? So it would be like this. Okay, so it is a combination of this syntax and this syntax. Okay, so combined together it comes like this, and this is the example. Got it? Okay, then similarly combination of class and some other attribute would go exactly the same way. Okay, so obviously a little change would be, instead of hash you would use dot and whatever the class value is. Okay, so it will be dot, instead of ID it will be class value, and then the attribute and the value itself. Okay, so now if I copy paste this here, you see text area, which is the tag, dot meaning the class. What is the value of class? Form control. Okay, but form control in itself was not giving me a unique object. So then I combined it with a attribute called as placeholder and the value of that attribute, which is current address. So as a combination, it has given me a unique object. Okay. All right. So then there are few more, and then probably I may take that Excel concept next time, because I think this has taken a lot of time. Uh, let's quickly see starts with, ends with, and contains. Okay. So how do you use that? Okay. So yeah.
There a combination of class value and ID you have to mention, Rahul, in Notepad. Second one.
Uh-huh.
Combination of class value and some other attribute.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yes. This is what you were saying, right? I had copied the wrong.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, Rahul.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Jansi. So we will see starts with, ends with, and contains. Okay. So we will see quickly the syntax for it. Okay. So we would, let's say this one. Okay. Let's spy this. Okay. Mm, So we have this uh, element first name which has this ID, and the value of that ID is first name, right? So if the first few words itself is unique, and if you want to identify it that way, then there is an option, or there is a syntax which goes something like this. You mention the tag input, okay, in square bracket mention the attribute which is ID, okay, and then use this what do we call it as, I think, caret symbol, which is on top of that 6 number key, right? There is this kind of a caret symbol we generally say. So you use that, equal to, and then you use the value, the initial starts with value, okay, and end it over here. Let me copy paste it in Notepad. So it is like this: HTML tag, okay, HTML tag, square bracket, the attribute, use this caret symbol, okay, equal to, in single quotes, the start value of the attribute. Okay. So as you can see, what was the entire value of this attribute ID? First name, right? So what I've used is simply the starting first value of that attribute, and it was able to identify it uniquely. So it was working as expected. Okay. Then for ends with, just like how we have starts with, we also have ends with. So ends with would, instead of caret, you would use dollar sign, and probably you would use name. Okay, so here obviously it is giving me one of two, because first name and last name both have ID which has value as first name, and last name, both ends with name, right? So maybe what I can do is I would say T name, okay, because last name, okay, sorry, not even uh, let's say RST name. Okay, so first name, so we have RST and then name. So this in itself ends with this, right? So it will give me a unique value over here. So again, it is same as starts with, the syntax. You just have to replace this caret with a dollar sign, okay, and you have to mention the unique ending value of that attribute, okay. And then we will see uh, contains. Contains. I'm sorry. Uh, so it would be, instead of dollar, it would be an asterisk symbol, and you can give anything in between. Okay, so but it should be unique, obviously. So if I say RST, so it comes in this first name element, right? So it is able to uniquely identify it. Okay, so it would be HTML tag instead of dollar, it would be asterisk. Uh, any value of the attribute. So any value of that attribute, it which is unique, it will be able to identify using this contains method. Okay, so guys, this was about CSS selector. I hope it was useful. Um, and as I said, you first try to find that object using ID, class name, then go with what else do we have? I forgot here.
Name,
Yeah, name, correct. So ID, I think then it comes name, then class names.
name,
Yeah, then it comes class name. Then if it is a link, then you can try with link text, partial link
partial link
text,
text.
right? Then you use CSS, and then
Yes, yes.
finally you use XPath. Okay, so first try with ID. If this works fine, then don't go for CSS, XPath, or anything. Why? Because this would help Selenium identify that object faster. Okay, no harm in using XPath always, but then it eventually takes a beating on your execution speed. Okay, so the sequence may be a little up and down, maybe you can verify it on Google, but more or less it is like that. Start with ID, name, class name, and CSS and XPath you try to keep it in the end, the last option, as you can see. You can use only for link, right? So like that. Okay, so if you don't have any question, we will end today's session. It's almost 1 hour 30 minutes. So unfortunately, as always, I couldn't cover all the topics which I planned, but no worries. Next session we would see Excel reading. We would start with Maven, and we would also start with TestNG. And after this, we will see how we can create a BDD Cucumber framework using page object model design. Okay, so we will see that. So this is very popular framework these days. So I hope this particular framework related tutorial would be useful for all of us. And here we will see obviously Maven, TestNG, then we will see extent report. Okay, we will see obviously Cucumber reports also, right? So there are plenty of exciting stuff in this framework related part. So we will see that as and when we progress. So thank you so much, guys, and we will probably meet next Saturday